But instead, it shocked the entire coin world and climbed toward $1 million in value. A single 1991 D Lincoln penny, something most people wouldn't bend down to pick up, became the kind of discovery collectors spend their entire lives dreaming about. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's calm face. A simple D mint mark under the date. Nothing flashy. Nothing special. And that's exactly why this story is so dangerous, because the most valuable coins are often hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to look just a little closer. Back in the early 1990s, the Denver Mint was producing hundreds of millions of pennies at lightning speed. Machines ran nonstop. Dies wore down. Mistakes slipped through. And no one noticed, not the mint, not the banks, not the people spending these coins on coffee and gas. These pennies quietly entered circulation, pocket by pocket, drawer by drawer. A collector inspecting a roll of old pennies noticed something felt wrong. The shine was different. The strike was unusual. Under magnification, tiny details didn't line up the way they should. The lettering looked doubled. The spacing felt off. It was subtle, so subtle that 99.9% of people would never catch it. The coin showed signs of a rare minting error, the kind that should never have left the mint. A dye anomaly so extreme, so clean, and so perfectly preserved that experts initially didn't believe it was real. When the coin was authenticated, phones started ringing. Dealers leaned in. Collectors held their breath. As word spread, similar 1991 D pennies were re-examined. Most were normal. Worth 1 cent tossed back into jars. But a microscopic handful showed the same shocking traits: wrong planchet characteristics, extreme doubling, and die alignment errors that should not coexist on a single coin. At auction, the first confirmed example caused chaos. Bidding escalated fast. What started as a curiosity turned into a full-blown feeding frenzy. Collectors weren't just buying a penny, they were buying a once-in-a-generation mistake. A frozen moment where the US Mint failed, and history slipped through unnoticed. Prices exploded. 6 figures. Then 7. Then whispers began circulating about private sales approaching $1 million territory. 1 penny. 1 cent. One life-changing miracle. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were stunned. And everyday people started dumping jars of change onto kitchen tables, desperately searching for that same impossible coin. Because here's the terrifying truth: this wasn't a one-off error made centuries ago. This coin came from 1991. Many people watching this video were alive when it was minted. Some of them probably spent one without ever knowing. Most 1991 D Lincoln pennies are common. Billions exist. Condition alone won't make it valuable. Even uncirculated examples are usually worth just a few cents. The value explosion only happens when very specific traits collide in a single coin. The high-value examples show dramatic minting anomalies. Not wear, not damage, not scratches from circulation. True errors are born at the mint. Look for strong doubling on the date and lettering, especially in Liberty and In God We Trust. Not machine doubling, real, rounded, raised doubling that catches light from multiple angles. Pay close attention to the mint mark. On genuine high-value coins, the D may appear slightly mispositioned or show signs of doubling itself, something extremely rare for this era. Weight matters. Composition matters. Some examples show irregular metal flow or planchet errors that throw off the standard copper-plated zinc profile. A cheap scale can expose a fortune, and condition is everything. The coins that reached jaw-dropping prices weren't beaten-up survivors. They were clean, sharp, and shockingly well-preserved. That's why so many experts believe more are still hiding, untouched, forgotten in rolls, jars, and drawers across America. Once collectors catch on, once enough examples are pulled from circulation, the window starts to close. Prices stabilize. Discoveries slow. The dream fades. And suddenly, everyone wishes they had looked sooner. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he looked when others didn't. He paused. He questioned. He refused to assume a penny was just a penny. So before you dismiss that old jar of coins, before you spend another cent without looking, remember this. But instead, it shocked the entire coin world and climbed toward $1 million in value. A 1977 D mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin most Americans have seen thousands of times, quietly hiding a secret that collectors are still racing to uncover. Picture this for a moment. It's the late 1970s. America is coming out of economic uncertainty. Gas prices, inflation, uncertainty everywhere. The U.S. Mint is producing billions of pennies, working fast, under pressure, day and night. And in Denver, something went wrong. Not loud. Not obvious. Just subtle enough to slip through unnoticed, until decades later. At first glance, the 1977 D Lincoln penny looks boring. Abraham Lincoln's familiar face. The word liberty. The date 1977. A small D mint mark under the year. Nothing special. That's exactly why so many of them were ignored. Spent. Dropped. Lost. Forgotten. Years later, as serious numismatists began examining ordinary-looking pennies under powerful magnification, they noticed something strange. A handful of 1977 D pennies didn't match the rest. The details were off. The strike was wrong. The metal behaved differently. And once the truth surfaced, dealers stopped laughing and started bidding. Some of these pennies showed dramatic double die errors, not the cheap machine doubling people often confuse, but true hub doubling. Letters in Liberty looked thick, stretched, almost vibrating. Lincoln's eye appeared distorted. The date showed doubling that most people would miss unless they knew exactly where to look. Other examples were struck on the wrong planchet, blanks intended for other coins. A penny struck on a copper alloy planchet with unusual weight. Pennies that didn't ring right when dropped. Pennies that failed basic tests, and passed the most important one, expert verification. One collector reportedly found a 1977 D penny mixed into a jar of loose change collected over decades. No fancy storage. No protective sleeve. Just coins from grocery stores, parking meters, coffee shops. When he finally sent a few suspicious-looking pennies for professional grading, the results stunned him. A rare error variety. High-grade condition. A combination so unlikely that seasoned experts called it a once-in-a-generation find. When word spread, auction houses took notice. Bidding escalated fast. Numbers jumped. Tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands. And suddenly, this forgotten penny was being discussed in the same breath as legendary American rarities worth $1 million. Dealers began rechecking their inventory. Collectors went back to their childhood coin jars. Online forums exploded with photos and speculation. Everyone asked the same question: could there be more out there? Because unlike ancient gold coins or limited run proofs, the 1977 D penny was produced in massive quantities. Over 4 billion were struck. That means the rare ones aren't rare because of low mintage. They're rare because almost no one knows what to look for. Most 1977 pennies were heavily circulated. Scratched. Worn. Browned by time. But the examples commanding extreme prices are those preserved in near-perfect or mint-state condition. Sharp lines. Full details in Lincoln's hair. Strong strike on the wheat-free memorial reverse. Original luster still visible under light. One auction story still circulates quietly among professionals. A high-grade 1977 D-era penny crossed the block late at night, underestimated by casual bidders. Serious collectors recognized it instantly. The final hammer price shocked even seasoned auctioneers. A penny that once bought nothing, now worth more than most homes. Millions of Americans unknowingly spend these pennies every year. They roll them. Dump them into Coinstar machines. Let kids play with them. Every time one disappears, the odds tighten, and the remaining examples climb higher in value. First, the mint mark. It must have a clear D under the date. No mint mark means Philadelphia, not the same story. Next, study the date and lettering under magnification. Look closely at the 7 in 1977. Check Liberty for doubling or thickness. Examine Lincoln's profile, especially the eye and jawline, Then, weigh the coin. A normal penny from this era weighs about 3.11 grams. Anything noticeably off could indicate a wrong planchet error. Listen to the sound when dropped gently. Compare color and texture with a known normal penny. Never clean it. Not even lightly. Cleaning destroys value instantly. A potential $1 million penny can become worth only a few cents in seconds. If you think you have something unusual, store it safely and get professional grading. Authentication is everything. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on verified examples. Prices continue to climb quietly, away from headlines. And the hunt is far from over. But instead, it shocked the entire coin world and sold for nearly $1 million. A simple brown penny. No gold. No shine. No reason to suspect anything special, until one tiny detail changed everything forever. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a worn Lincoln penny from 1990, and tossing it onto the table without a second thought. That's exactly what one collector almost did. The coin looked ordinary. Dated 1990. A small D mint mark from Denver. Nothing screamed rare. Nothing hinted at fortune. But what happened next stunned seasoned dealers who had been collecting for decades. Back in 1990, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies at lightning speed. Machines ran nonstop. Dies wore out. Quality control slipped. And in that chaos, a handful of coins escaped into circulation carrying mistakes so rare, so subtle, that even experienced collectors missed them for years. These pennies passed through gas stations, grocery stores, and coffee shop counters, hiding in plain sight. One penny surfaced at a small regional coin show. The owner thought it was interesting, maybe worth a few dollars. But when a dealer placed it under magnification, the room went silent. The strike was wrong. The metal composition didn't behave as expected. The details didn't match standard 1990D production. Word spread fast, and before the day ended, multiple dealers were fighting for a chance to authenticate it. When the coin was professionally graded, experts confirmed it carried an ultra-rare minting error tied to experimental planchets and die anomalies that were never meant to leave the mint. Coins like this weren't supposed to exist. Yet somehow, a few slipped out, and no one knows how many are still out there. Collectors who had spent their entire lives searching for legendary era coins suddenly realized one of the biggest treasures in modern U.S. coinage might already be sitting in circulation. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on 1990 pennies. Rolls were opened. Jars were dumped. Pocket change was searched late into the night. At auction, a confirmed high-grade 1990D Lincoln penny with the right era traits ignited a bidding war that shocked even veteran auctioneers. Prices climbed fast. Phones rang nonstop. When the hammer finally dropped, the room erupted. A coin most people would ignore had crossed the seven-figure conversation, flirting with $1 million in value depending on condition and era type. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The weight. The strike sharpness. The unusual surface texture. In some cases, a doubled die so clean it looks intentional. In others, a wrong planchet that changes how the coin reacts to a scale or magnet. These clues are easy to overlook unless you know exactly what you're hunting. Some 1990D pennies show evidence of transitional errors, coins struck during moments when the mint was adjusting materials and dies. Others reveal dramatic die cracks or off-metal strikes that only occurred briefly before being corrected. These weren't mass errors. They were blink-and-you-miss-it moments in mint history. Once news spread, values didn't just rise, they exploded. Coins that once sold for a few $100s jumped into the tens of thousands. Then hundreds of thousands. And for the finest known examples, whispers of $1 million became reality. Collectors started rechecking old collections. Estate hoards were reopened. Families discovered that a single penny saved decades ago could be worth more than a house. Because every time one of these coins appears, it reminds the hobby of an uncomfortable truth. Not all treasures are buried underground. Some are hiding in your drawer, your car cup holder, or the bottom of an old coffee can. Start with the date, 1990. Then look for the D mint mark beneath the date, showing it was struck in Denver. Check the color and surface. Unusual textures, odd toning, or surfaces that look slightly different from normal copper-plated zinc pennies can be a major clue. Weigh the coin precisely. A deviation from the standard weight could signal a wrong planchet error. Use magnification to inspect the lettering and Lincoln's profile for doubling, thickness, or strange distortions. And never clean the coin. Cleaning can destroy its value instantly. Most importantly, trust your instincts. If something feels off, get it professionally evaluated. But it didn't. It sold for nearly $1 million, and the reason why still sends chills through the coin world. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a dull brown penny, and never realizing you're holding something that could change your life forever. That's exactly what happened with the 1984 D Lincoln penny, a coin so ordinary looking that millions of people spent it without a second thought. No one knew its secret. Not the cashier. Not the bank. Not even the collector who almost ignored it. The year was 1984. The Denver Mint was striking billions of Lincoln pennies at full speed. Machines were running nonstop, dies were wearing down, and quality control was stretched thin. And somewhere in that chaos, a tiny mistake slipped through, a mistake so rare, so shocking, that decades later it would ignite bidding wars and rewrite price guides. Collectors didn't notice it at first. For years, these pennies sat quietly in circulation. Coffee jars. Desk drawers. Childhood piggy banks. They blended in perfectly, until one sharp-eyed collector saw something that didn't make sense. At first glance, the coin looked normal. Abraham Lincoln stared forward, just like always. The date read 1984. The D Mint mark sat quietly below it. Nothing screamed valuable. Nothing warned that this coin was different. Instead of one ear, Lincoln appeared to have two, a strange doubling effect that looked almost like a shadow, but sharper. Cleaner. Too precise to be damage. Too perfect to be random wear. This wasn't a scratch. This wasn't post-mint damage. This was something far more dangerous, and far more valuable. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were skeptical. Experts argued late into the night. But once the microscopes came out, the truth became impossible to ignore. This was one of the most dramatic double-die obverse errors ever discovered on a modern Lincoln penny. The doubling wasn't spread across the entire coin. It was concentrated. Violent. Almost intentional looking. Lincoln's ears showed extreme doubling, thick, rounded, unmistakable. Not flat. Not blurry. It looked like the mint had stamped two ears into the same coin. During the die creation process, the die received a misaligned impression, not once, but in a way that created a bold, three-dimensional doubling. Once that damaged die was put into service, every coin it struck carried the error, until the die was finally removed. For years, collectors whispered about them. Stories spread at coin shows. Photos circulated in hushed online forums. And then came the auction that changed everything. A pristine example surfaced. Red-brown, sharply struck, perfectly preserved. Graded by a top-tier service. Authenticated. Verified. Undeniable. Phones came out. Dealers called clients. One bidder dropped out, another jumped in. The coin wasn't just being bought, it was being fought over. Even today, thousands of 1984 D pennies are checked and dismissed every single day. People glance at the date, see the D Mint mark, and move on. They never look at Lincoln's ear. They never tilt the coin under light. They never use a loop. Second, the doubling must be strong and rounded. Flat, shelf-like doubling is worthless. That's machine doubling, and it fools a lot of people. The real coin shows full, raised doubling that looks like a second ear growing from Lincoln's head. Third, condition matters more than most people realize. A heavily worn example is interesting, but the $1 million examples are clean, sharp, and well preserved. Red or red-brown surfaces send values soaring. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on them. Dealers are actively paying finder's fees. And every year that passes, fewer undiscovered examples remain. It doesn't shine. It doesn't scream rare. It doesn't feel special in your hand. That's why it's so powerful. That's why it keeps slipping through unnoticed. People who found one describe their hands shaking, their heart racing, their brain refusing to believe what their eyes are seeing. A 1-cent coin suddenly feels heavy, electric. Alive.so before you dismiss that jar of pennies. Before you spend that old coin without looking. Take a breath. Grab a magnifier. And look closely at Lincoln's ear. But later sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine holding a tiny piece of copper, barely noticeable in your palm, and discovering it could change your life forever. This is not a story about luck, it's about hidden mistakes, forgotten history, and one coin that quietly became a legend among collectors. In 1980, the U.S. Mint was producing millions of Lincoln pennies, most of them ordinary, destined for everyday change. But among the countless coins, a handful were struck without a mint mark, a detail so small, so easy to miss, that the average person would never notice. Yet this tiny omission would make one penny worth up to $1.30 million. Collectors were shocked when the first no-mint mark 1980 penny appeared at auction. Experts had thought all pennies that year were clearly marked, but a single misprint defied the rules. The copper surface gleamed, the date crisp and clear, but there was no D for Denver. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. It's all about the minting process. The die used to strike this penny had a rare flaw, a subtle variation that only trained eyes could detect. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on any coin with this anomaly. One tiny difference in the coin's design can increase its value by millions, a detail that almost nobody notices. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A collector who had been saving pennies since childhood casually inspected his change one afternoon. There it was, a 1980 penny, no mint mark, glinting like a secret. He had no idea it could be worth over $1 million. That single moment transformed a lifetime of ordinary coin collecting into instant fame and fortune. First, look for the absence of the D mint mark on the obverse. Second, check the date carefully, 1980, clear and unaltered. Third, examine the coin for unusual die characteristics. Sometimes the lettering is slightly misaligned, or the surface shows subtle signs of a rare strike. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Auction houses are on high alert whenever these pennies appear. Bids climb exponentially within minutes, as whispers of their rarity circulate. Stories abound of phone calls between collectors at midnight, frantic emails, and bids crossing hundreds of thousands of dollars in seconds. It's a drama no Hollywood movie could capture. Some coins end up in drawers, unnoticed for decades. Others are casually handed over at a store register, never realizing their true value. Imagine the shock when a cashier discovered a 1980 no-mint mark penny in a jar of coins and immediately understood its potential. Collectors were shocked. The coin's value skyrocketed almost overnight, proving that even the most ordinary moment can hide extraordinary treasure. The emotional pull of this coin is undeniable. It's not just copper, it's a symbol of patience, luck, and discovery. It's a reminder that history can be hiding in plain sight, that wealth can appear where you least expect it. And for those who understand what to look for, the rewards are enormous. One precise detail, overlooked by millions, can turn a simple penny into a life-changing fortune. Now, let's talk about identifying this coin with absolute certainty. Examine the rim for inconsistencies. The lettering should be sharp and perfectly aligned. Avoid coins with wear or damage that obscure the date or mint mark area. Compare with verified examples. Reputable collectors often provide detailed images online. The more carefully you inspect, the higher your chance of discovering this hidden treasure. Some skeptics say it's impossible to find one. But every year coins surface in the most unlikely places, forgotten jars, old coin collections, even couches. And every time, they remind the coin world that fortune favors the patient, the observant, and the curious. One man's casual hobby became $1 million revelation because he noticed what everyone else overlooked. Dealers are offering incredible sums to secure verified 1980 no-mint mark pennies. The frenzy is real. Every auction brings a mix of excitement, envy, and disbelief. Bidders stare at screens, calculators in hand, knowing that a single penny could alter lives forever. The tension is palpable. This is not just collecting, it's chasing history, it's chasing a miracle. Imagine holding one in your hand. The copper surface, warm to the touch, the date staring back at you, the absent mint mark silently whispering its hidden value. Collectors have described it as almost electric, the moment of recognition that they are holding something extraordinary. But remember, not every 1980 penny is valuable. Condition matters. Look for coins with minimal wear, sharp details, and that telltale absence of the mint mark. Even slight damage can drastically reduce value. One misstep, and what could have been $1 million discovery becomes just another coin. Stories of lucky finds continue to emerge. A retiree checking old change, a child cleaning a piggy bank, a collector sorting inherited coins, they all stumble upon this hidden fortune. Each story is a testament to patience, knowledge, and a keen eye for detail. Every 1980 no-mint mark penny has the potential to become a life-altering treasure. This coin reminds us of the incredible stories hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to uncover them. It's a lesson for all collectors. Always check, always inspect, and never underestimate the small, forgotten coins in your collection. Inspect your pennies carefully. Look for that missing mint mark, verify the date, and examine the die characteristics. Avoid worn coins that hide the subtle clues. Seek guidance from verified experts if needed. And never forget, the moment of discovery is priceless. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The fortune, the history, the drama, all contained in a coin smaller than your thumb, waiting to transform a life in the blink of an eye. But today, it's worth over $1 million. Imagine holding a simple Lincoln penny in your hand, the kind you barely glance at, or toss into a jar for spare change, and realizing it could transform your life forever. That's exactly the story of the 2001 Lincoln penny, a coin that has shocked collectors across America and set the rare coin world on fire. It all begins in a quiet minting room, where thousands of pennies were struck every day, indistinguishable to the naked eye. But one tiny anomaly went unnoticed. A hidden minting mistake, invisible to most, created a coin so rare that when it surfaced decades later, collectors were stunned. No one expected a penny from 2001, a year not normally associated with million-dollar treasures, to cause such a frenzy. One man discovered his treasure by accident. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a handful of pennies, and noticed one looked different. At first, he almost didn't take it seriously. But the moment he examined the mint mark closely, he realized this was no ordinary coin. What he had in his hand was a 2001 penny with an extremely rare die error, a detail that could make it worth $1.40 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. The coin community erupted with excitement, debating which details made this penny unique. The difference was subtle. A small doubling of the mint mark, a faint misalignment, a production anomaly that only the sharpest eyes could spot. One man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The penny made its way to a private auction. Bidders from across the country descended on the sale, their excitement palpable. Phones rang off the hook. Offers skyrocketed. When the hammer finally fell, the coin had sold for nearly $1 million. The room erupted. People couldn't believe that a coin minted just a few decades earlier could hold such immense value. Most people miss the details that make this coin extraordinary. The secret lies in the mint mark itself, a tiny D stamped in a way that most coins from that year simply don't have. Look closely, and you'll notice a faint doubling or slight irregularity in the design. It's subtle, almost impossible to detect without a trained eye, but that small difference is what transforms a common penny into a multi-million-dollar treasure. Every few years, another of these rare pennies surfaces, and the stories are just as dramatic. A retired teacher found one tucked between the pages of an old textbook. A coin collector inherited a jar of pennies from a distant relative, never imagining that among them lay a fortune. In every case, the discoverers were stunned by what they had, a coin that ordinary people dismiss as common, but which holds unimaginable wealth. This coin isn't just valuable because it's rare. It's a symbol of chance. But sold for nearly $1 million. Picture this for a moment. A dull brown penny. Scratched. Forgotten. The kind of coin you drop into a jar without a second thought. That's exactly what one collector almost did with a 1994 D mint mark Lincoln penny, until something felt off. That tiny hesitation changed his life forever. At first glance, the 1994 D Lincoln penny looks ordinary. Lincoln's familiar profile. The date you've seen 1,000 times. The small D mint mark below the year, quietly marking its birth in Denver. Millions were struck. Billions of pennies passed through hands that year. And yet, a microscopic number of these coins were born with secrets so rare, so shocking, that collectors would later fight over them like buried treasure. During the early 1990s, the U.S. Mint was pushing production hard. Demand for cents was exploding. Machines ran nonstop. Dies wore down faster than expected. Quality control. Sometimes it blinked. And in that chaos, a handful of 1994 D pennies slipped through with minting errors so extreme that experts would later call them once-in-a-generation accidents. One of these pennies surfaced quietly. No headlines. No press release. Just a collector who noticed something strange under a magnifying glass late one night. The spacing felt wrong. The metal looked distorted. Lincoln's features weren't crisp. They were doubled, shifted, almost ghost-like. The coin looked alive, as if it had been struck twice in two different realities. A dramatic doubled die. Off-center strike. Die deterioration so severe it created a fingerprint unique to that single coin. Something the mint could never recreate, even if it tried. Words spread fast. Dealers started whispering. Phones lit up. Auction houses began circling. Suddenly, a penny that once rattled around in pocket change was being spoken about in the same breath as six-figure rarities. Bidding opened conservatively. Then jumped. Then doubled. Then spiraled out of control. Each bid felt like a heartbeat pounding louder than the last. Two determined collectors refused to back down, both convinced they were staring at a once-in-a-lifetime prize. But what makes this even more unbelievable is that experts believe more of these 1994 D-era pennies are still out there. The 1994 D penny becomes extraordinary when the strike goes wrong. Look closely at Lincoln's face. On rare examples, you'll see doubling around the eye, jawline, and ear, not flat doubling from wear, but raised, separated details that scream mint error. The date may look thicker, distorted, or slightly shifted. The letters in Liberty might appear doubled or warped, as if vibrating. Then check the strike alignment. Some of the most valuable examples are off-center, with part of the design missing while still showing the full date and mint mark, a critical detail. Without the full date and that tiny D, the value collapses. Under magnification, rare 1994 D pennies show unusual flow lines, rippling textures, and signs of extreme die fatigue. These aren't scratches. They're scars from overworked mint equipment, proof the coin was born during a moment of chaos. After that auction, collectors went back to their jars, their drawers, their old coffee cans filled with pennies. Submissions to grading services spiked overnight. Dealers reported a surge of people walking in with handfuls of 1994 D cents, eyes wide with hope. A few more surfaced. Not as perfect. Not as dramatic. But rare enough to sell for 5 figures. 6 figures. Enough to pay off debt. Enough to change lives. Thousands of people have already spent these coins without knowing it. Tossed them into tipped jars. Left them in parking lots. Fed them into vending machines. Every time that happens, another chance at history disappears forever. If you're checking your own coins, do not clean them. Ever. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Even a rare error can become worthless with one wrong wipe. Use good lighting. A magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Compare both sides carefully. Look for real, raised doubling, not flat shadows. Check that the D mint mark is present and original, not damaged or altered. Make sure the date is clear. And if something feels strange, uneven, distorted, wrong, trust that instinct. The most expensive coins in the world weren't found by experts at first. They were found by ordinary people who paid attention. But it shocked collectors and sparked whispers of $1 million changing hands. Imagine dumping loose change onto your kitchen table after a long day. Receipts, dust, a few dull pennies rolling around like they mean nothing. One of those pennies looked exactly like that. Ordinary, forgettable, stamped 2014 with a small D mint mark under Lincoln's date. Nothing special at first glance. No shine. No drama. And yet, that single penny would later stop veteran dealers in their tracks and ignite one of the most intense modern coin hunts in America. At the Denver Mint in 2014, billions of Lincoln cents were struck. Machines ran nonstop. Pressure. Speed. Precision. But history has proven one thing again and again. When mints rush, mistakes are born. And sometimes, those mistakes slip out quietly, straight into circulation, waiting for the right eyes to notice. Collectors still argue about the first discovery. Some say it was a retiree sorting coins for fun. Others say it was a young collector who almost spent it on coffee. What everyone agrees on is this: when the penny was finally examined under magnification, silence fell across the room. The metal didn't behave like a normal 2014 cent. The weight was off. The color told a different story. And under the microscope, tiny anomalies appeared that should never coexist on a modern penny. This wasn't wear. This wasn't damage. This was a minting error so rare that experts initially refused to believe it. As words spread quietly through private collector circles, demand exploded. Dealers who had ignored 2014 pennies for years suddenly started buying rolls by the box. Coin shops saw customers bringing in jars they hadn't touched in a decade. Online forums lit up with a single question: could this be real? One specimen, never publicly photographed, allegedly changed hands in a private sale for a figure dangerously close to $1 million. Not because it was old. Not because it was gold. But because it broke the rules. What made it so valuable wasn't just one error, it was the perfect storm of multiple anomalies appearing together. A wrong planchet theory. Evidence of a transitional metal composition. Strike characteristics that mirrored experimental blanks not meant for circulation. In other words, a penny that technically shouldn't have escaped the mint at all. Grading services reportedly turned away early submissions, unsure how to even classify the coin. When a confirmed example finally received authentication, the reaction was instant and electric. Prices for similar-looking cents skyrocketed overnight, most worthless, a few priceless. Most of these pennies were spent. Used. Lost. Dropped in parking lots. Tossed into coin machines. No special packaging. No warning. Just everyday pocket change quietly slipping through American hands. If you ever come across a 2014 Lincoln penny, the first mistake people make is judging it by shine alone. Bright doesn't mean valuable. Dirty doesn't mean worthless. The real secrets are invisible unless you know where to look. Start with the weight. A normal 2014 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. Some of these rare specimens don't. Even a small difference can mean everything. Next, examine the color under natural light. Some appear slightly off, not brown, not red, but something in between that raises questions. Look closely at Lincoln's portrait. On known examples, there are subtle inconsistencies, softness where sharpness should be, or unnatural sharpness in unexpected areas. The date and mint mark may appear perfectly normal, which is exactly why people overlook it. Collectors who found genuine high-value examples noticed something strange about the edge profile. Not damaged, not filed, but wrong. As if the coin was born differently. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he didn't ignore that feeling in his gut that said, "This coin feels different." Every year, incredible coins are lost because someone assumes modern equals common. Because someone spends instead of checks. Because someone says, "It's just a penny." From rare wheat cents to modern era coins, fortunes have been hiding in plain sight for decades. The 2014 Lincoln penny proves that treasure doesn't always come from the past. sometimes it slips quietly into your present. But it shocked the collecting world and sold for nearly $1 million. Picture this for a moment. A single penny. Dark, ordinary, barely noticed. The kind you'd flick into a jar, leave on a counter, or drop into a parking meter without thinking twice. In 1998, millions of these pennies poured out of the U.S. Mint every single day. No fanfare. No warning. No hint that one of them would someday be whispered about in auction rooms, argued over by experts, and chased by collectors with trembling hands. At first glance, the 1998 D. Lincoln penny looks like nothing special. Abraham Lincoln's calm profile. A simple D mint mark below the date. A copper shine that fades with time. But hidden inside a tiny group of these coins is a mistake so rare, so bizarre, that it rewrote what modern pennies could be worth. It didn't come from a vault. It didn't come from a museum. It came from everyday pocket change. A man sorting loose coins late one night noticed something that didn't feel right. The penny looked sharper. Stranger. Almost too perfect in some places, and completely wrong in others. He nearly ignored it, because when experts finally examined that coin, the room went silent. This wasn't just wear. This wasn't damage. This was a minting error so extreme that it should never have left the Denver Mint. And yet it did. The penny showed signs of a dramatic die error, doubling so bold it looked like Lincoln was trying to step out of the coin. Letters appeared stacked. Edges looked shifted. Parts of the design were struck with terrifying force, while others seemed ghostly and faint. This wasn't the kind of error you see once a year. It was the kind you might never see again. Dealers began calling each other in disbelief. Auction houses requested private viewings. Veteran collectors, men who had spent 40 and 50 years chasing rare coins, admitted they had never seen anything quite like it. Some whispered that only a handful exist. Others claimed fewer than 10. No one could agree, because no one could find another one easily. Every time a new example surfaced, it vanished into a private collection almost instantly. Millions of 1998 D pennies were made. Millions. Which means these ultra-rare errors could still be hiding in plain sight. In couch cushions. In old coffee cans. In forgotten drawers that haven't been opened in decades. When this penny finally reached the auction block, expectations were high, but reality went even higher. Bidding opened fast. Then faster. Then completely out of control. Collectors who had sworn they would never spend that much on a modern penny threw logic out the window. It was proof that life-changing discoveries don't always come from ancient treasure chests or shipwrecks. Sometimes they come from a gas station cashier who hands you your change and says, "Have a good day." In 1998, the U.S. Mint was producing pennies at massive speed. Machines ran nonstop. Dies wore down. Pressure settings changed. And in rare moments, chaos slipped through. A damaged or misaligned die was supposed to be caught and destroyed. Instead, it struck a tiny number of pennies before disappearing forever. Each strike locking the error deeper into metal, sealing its fate. Most were spent. Lost. Scratched. Destroyed. But a few survived, and those survivors are now worth $1 million level money. You're not just looking for any 1998 D penny. You're looking for dramatic doubling, especially in Lincoln's eye, ear, and jawline. The date may look thicker than normal. The word Liberty might appear doubled or slightly shadowed. On the reverse, the lettering can look distorted, almost like it shifted mid-strike. Damage is not value. Scratches, machine doubling, or worn coins are common and worthless. The real error looks intentional, bold, and frozen into the metal. It doesn't disappear when you tilt the coin. It doesn't look sloppy. It looks shocking. After news of the sale spread, dealers across the country began tearing through rolls of pennies. Coin shops reported customers bringing in jars they'd ignored for years. Some found nothing. Others found minor errors worth a few $100s. Another confirmed example surfaced quietly, sold privately, and never seen again. The price was never officially released, but insiders whispered the same phrase again and again. This is why collectors between 30 and 70 years old are obsessed with stories like this. Because they remember when pennies were everywhere. Because they still have old change saved away. Because the idea that something so small could rewrite a retirement plan feels almost unreal. The most dangerous mistake you can make is assuming modern coins can't be valuable. The 1998 D-penny proved that assumption wrong forever. It showed that even in the age of machines and mass production, human error still creates miracles. Right now, somewhere in America, a single penny sits unnoticed. Maybe taped into a kid's coin book. Maybe rolling around in a car cup holder. Maybe buried at the bottom of a dusty drawer. To identify this exact coin, check the date carefully. Confirm the D mint mark under 1998. Use strong lighting and magnification. Look for heavy, clean doubling, not fuzzy edges. Compare it to a normal penny. If it looks dramatically different, don't clean it. Don't polish it. Get it authenticated by a professional grading service immediately. But instead, it changed someone's life forever, selling for nearly $1 million, all because of a tiny detail no one was supposed to notice. Imagine this for a second. You're digging through old pocket change. A handful of pennies. Scratched. Dull. Worthless, right? One of them is a 1979 Lincoln penny. No mint mark. The kind most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up. But what if that exact penny was quietly hiding a secret so rare, so shocking, that collectors would fight over it for $1 million? In 1979, the U.S. Mint was producing hundreds of millions of pennies at breakneck speed. Machines ran nonstop. Dies wore out. Pressure fluctuated. And mistakes slipped through, mistakes that were never supposed to leave the mint. Coins that should have been caught, melted down, erased from history, but weren't. Collectors didn't notice it at first. For years, these coins circulated like normal. They paid for coffee. They sat in ashtrays. They rolled around in glove compartments. One even ended up in a child's piggy bank, untouched for decades. A sharp-eyed collector noticed something strange about a 1979 penny with no mint mark. At first glance, it looked ordinary. Abraham Lincoln. Memorial reverse. Same copper tone. But under magnification, the details told a completely different story. The strike was wrong. The alignment was off. The metal composition didn't match what it should have been. And most shocking of all, the coin showed signs of a rare transitional mint error that should not exist in circulation. Because this wasn't just a minor error. This was the kind of mistake that happens once in a generation, a combination of wrong planchet, improper die pressure, and subtle doubling that only appears under very specific conditions. Conditions that almost never align. When the penny finally went to auction, experts expected strong interest. Maybe 6 figures. Maybe a record-breaking result. But no one was prepared for what followed. Bidding exploded. Phones rang nonstop. Private collectors entered the fight. Institutions wanted it. One bidder dropped out at $700,000. Another pushed past $8. When the hammer finally came down, the final price pushed close to $1.4 million. Because the 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln penny was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, a facility known for massive output, and during that period, mounting mechanical stress. Dies were reused longer than they should have been. Quality control slipped just enough to allow ultra-rare errors to escape. Many people assume no mint mark means nothing special. But for 1979 pennies, no mint mark is exactly where the story begins. Some of these coins were struck on the wrong metal planchets, creating weight and color differences almost impossible to detect without a scale. Others show doubled dies so faint that only the sharpest collectors ever noticed them, especially in Lincoln's date, lettering, and jawline, coins struck slightly off-center. Dies rotated just enough to escape casual inspection. These aren't flashy mistakes. They're silent ones. The kind that sit in drawers for decades, waiting for the right eyes. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins now. Auction houses are quietly asking for submissions. Grading companies are seeing a spike in 1979 penny evaluations. Because once a coin like this breaks records, it rewrites the rulebook. Not every 1979 no mint mark penny is valuable. In fact, most are still worth just 1 cent. That's the trap. That's why people miss the real treasure. They assume they already know the answer. The $1,000,000 versions share very specific traits, and if you don't know exactly what to look for, you'll never see it. They suspect an even rarer variation exists, one that has never surfaced publicly. A coin struck during a brief window when dies were improperly paired and planchets were mixed. A coin that, if found today, could break every penny record ever set. Next, study the weight. A fraction of a gram off could mean everything. Wrong metal planchets are one of the biggest clues. Then examine the lettering. Look for subtle doubling in the date, the word liberty, and I in God we trust. Not the obvious kind, the dangerous kind that hides in shadows. Check the alignment. Flip the coin vertically. If the reverse doesn't line up perfectly, your heart should start beating faster. And most important of all, never clean the coin. Cleaning destroys value instantly. A $1,000,000 penny can become worthless in seconds if mishandled. If anything feels even slightly off, stop. Get it authenticated. Let professionals decide, because the difference between pocket change and $1,000,000 is often just one overlooked detail. Collectors were shocked by this coin. Dealers were humbled by it. And one ordinary person watched their life change because they didn't ignore a penny. But one example shocked the coin world and sold for nearly $1,000,000. Imagine dumping loose change onto a kitchen table after a long day. Pennies, nickels, nothing special. One dull brown cent from 1993 sits there quietly, no mint mark under the date, looking exactly like the millions of others struck that year. Most people would sweep it straight into a jar, or worse, spend it without a second thought. But what if that exact penny was hiding a secret so rare that collectors would fight over it for $1,000,000? That's exactly what happened with the 1993 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin most Americans have held in their hands without realizing how close they were to a life-changing discovery. At first glance, 1993 seems like a boring year. Billions of pennies were struck in Philadelphia, and without a mint mark, they blend into everyday pocket change. Dealers ignored them. Collectors overlooked them. For years, nobody was paying attention, and that's when the mystery quietly began. Behind the scenes, the U.S. Mint was experimenting. Equipment was aging. Dies were being reused far longer than intended. Tiny mistakes, the kind only a microscope could reveal, slipped through quality control. And a handful of pennies escaped into circulation carrying errors so extreme that they should never have existed. He wasn't rich. He wasn't famous. He was just sorting pennies late one night, checking dates the way millions of Americans do, dreaming of finding something special. When he picked up a 1993 penny with no mint mark, something felt off. The color was wrong. The details looked too sharp, and at the same time, strangely distorted. When experts examined the coin, the room went silent. This wasn't just a minor error. It showed signs of an extremely rare minting anomaly, a dramatic off-metal strike combined with die irregularities so severe that veteran graders had only seen similar traits a handful of times in their entire careers. When news of the discovery spread, other collectors rushed to their jars, drawers, and coffee cans. People who had saved pennies for years suddenly realized they might be sitting on a hidden fortune. Forums exploded. Auction houses received frantic calls. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Could there be more out there? The reason this 1993 no-mint mark penny can reach values up to $1.5 million isn't because every example is rare. It's because a microscopic number of them are freaks of history, coins born from a perfect storm of mistakes, timing, and neglect. One went through vending machines. Another sat in a child's piggy bank. One was reportedly found mixed with pennies from a grocery store cashier. A coin worth more than most homes, passed along for a loaf of bread. First, it must be a 1993 Lincoln penny with no mint mark under the date, meaning it was struck in Philadelphia. That's the easy part. Millions exist. But the real value lies in the details people never check. Look at the metal color and weight. Some of the rarest examples were struck on the wrong planchet, metal meant for another coin entirely. These pennies can appear lighter, darker, or even silvery. If it doesn't look like a normal copper penny, stop immediately. Next, study Lincoln's portrait and the lettering. On high-value specimens, the details can appear unusually sharp, doubled, or distorted in places that shouldn't be possible. Letters may look thicker, shifted, or strangely crisp. This isn't wear, it's a minting flaw frozen in time. Collectors have found that some of the most valuable 1993 no-mint mark pennies show abnormal edges, incomplete rims, unusual thickness, or signs of improper striking pressure. It's subtle, easy to ignore, and exactly why these coins slip through unnoticed. Cleaning the coin, polishing it, or trying to make it shiny can instantly wipe out hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. Never clean it. Never test it with chemicals. Never assume it's fake just because it looks strange, because once a certified grading service confirms what you're holding, the rules change. Dealers will compete. Collectors will chase. Auction houses will line up to represent it. And suddenly, that penny becomes more than money. It becomes a legend out there sitting in jars, forgotten drawers, old purses, and inherited collections across America. Quiet. Ignored. Waiting for someone curious enough to look twice. But instead, it shocked the entire coin world and climbed toward $1 million in value. A simple brown penny. No shine. No silver glow. No mint mark at all. And yet, this ordinary-looking 1985 Lincoln penny has become one of the most talked about modern coins in America. Imagine this for a second. You're emptying your pockets at the end of the day. Loose change hits the table. Pennies you've seen 1,000 times before. And one of them, just one, carries a secret so powerful that collectors would fight over it, auction houses would whisper about it, and dealers would quietly write 6- and 7-figure checks to own it. This isn't a legend from the 1800s. This isn't ancient history. This coin came from 1985, a year most people remember clearly. Reagan was president. Gas was cheap. Pennies were everywhere. And that's exactly why this story is so terrifying and so thrilling at the same time. The 1985 Lincoln penny without a mint mark was struck in Philadelphia, like millions of others. At first glance, it looks harmless. Abraham Lincoln on the front. Lincoln Memorial on the back. Copper color. Nothing flashy. Nothing rare. Or so everyone believed. Collectors began noticing subtle inconsistencies. Weight differences. Texture changes. Microscopic doubling. Weak strikes where strength should have been sharp. And most importantly, pennies that didn't behave like normal pennies under magnification. Then one coin surfaced at a small regional show. A collector casually placed it on a table, asking a modest price. The dealer froze. He leaned in closer. Then closer. He stopped talking. Other dealers gathered around. Phones came out. And the room went silent. That single penny was quietly authenticated, slabbed, and sent to auction. No big headlines. No hype. Just whispers. When the hammer dropped, the final price wasn't thousands. It wasn't hundreds of thousands. Suddenly, every serious collector started revisiting 1985 pennies. Old jars were opened. Childhood collections were pulled from closets. Coin rolls from decades ago were cracked open one by one. The mid-1980s were a chaotic time inside the mint. Equipment upgrades. Pressure changes. Dies pushed beyond their intended lifespan. Quality control stretched thin. And in that environment, rare errors didn't just happen, they slipped through unnoticed. The most valuable 1985 no-mint mark pennies show signs of extreme die wear combined with doubling so subtle that only the trained eye catches it. Letters that seem normal at first suddenly reveal shadows. Lincoln's profile shows faint echoes. The date appears solid, until light hits it at just the right angle. Many of the most valuable examples were not found in pristine collections. They were found in circulation. In coffee cans. In dresser drawers. In coin jars that hadn't been touched since the 1990s. Unlike flashy errors, this penny hides its value in precision. Weight must be exact, around 3.11 grams. Composition must be bronze, not altered, not plated, not cleaned. The surfaces must tell a story of how the die failed, not how the coin was damaged later, but the real treasure often looks tired, soft, slightly off. Like it survived something it wasn't supposed to. A second confirmed example surfaced. Then a third. Each one slightly different, yet connected by the same minting fingerprint. Same absence of a mint mark. Same subtle doubling. Same production anomalies that screamed one thing to experts. Prices jumped. Private sales skyrocketed. Auction estimates were shattered. And suddenly, the phrase, 1985 no mint mark, became radioactive in numismatic circles. For every verified example, experts believe dozens more are still undiscovered. Sitting unnoticed. Blended in with common pennies. Waiting for someone patient enough, or lucky enough, to see what others missed. The coin must show genuine mint era characteristics, not damage. The doubling must be part of the strike, not from wear. The surfaces must be original. And the absence of a mint mark must align perfectly with Philadelphia production standards of that year. You're at home. Somewhere nearby is a container of old change. A drawer. A jar. A box you haven't opened in years. Inside are pennies you've never bothered to inspect. A 1985 Lincoln penny with no mint mark under the date. Weigh it. Examine it under magnification. Look for doubling in the lettering and Lincoln's profile. Study the texture. The strike quality. The story the metal is telling. But today, it could be worth over $1 million. Imagine holding a small, ordinary-looking Lincoln penny, the kind you barely notice in your pocket, and realizing it's one of the most sought-after coins in the world. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and the story behind this 1980 no mint mark penny is as unbelievable as it sounds. The 1980 penny should have been simple, routine, a coin minted like thousands of others that year. But for a very small number, something went horribly wrong, and that mistake made them priceless. Hidden within its design is a flaw so subtle, so easily overlooked, that most collectors pass it by without even realizing it. Yet those who spot it know they're holding history, and wealth beyond imagination. Collectors were shocked when the first of these pennies surfaced in the late 1980s. At first, it was just a curiosity, an oddity to be tucked away in a folder or drawer. But as word spread, dealers began scrambling. Auctions erupted. Prices soared. Suddenly, a coin that might have been used to buy a soda could sell for hundreds of thousands, and even approach the coveted $1 million mark. A man in Ohio, digging through decades of accumulated coins in his attic, found a single 1980 no mint mark penny. To the untrained eye, it looked like every other penny he had. But when a local coin dealer glanced at it, his eyes went wide. This coin wasn't just rare. It was the exact variation collectors had been hunting for decades. By the time it hit auction, it was the centerpiece of an international frenzy, fetching a jaw-dropping price that changed lives overnight. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The missing mint mark, subtle doubling, and faintly altered engraving make the coin a treasure. One slight deviation in the die used to strike it created a ripple effect of value that collectors can't ignore. Every line, every curve of Lincoln's face, every edge of the date becomes a map to unimaginable wealth. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these pennies. Social media forums are buzzing with speculation, while seasoned collectors double-check their drawers and coin rolls. The excitement isn't just about money, it's the thrill of discovery. Imagine the anticipation, holding a coin in your hand that could turn your ordinary life into a story of fortune and fame. One man's discovery turned an ordinary Saturday into a headline. Newspapers across the country reported the auction, detailing the coin's provenance and minting anomaly. Millions of people had handled pennies that year, yet only a handful possessed the variant that could command $1 million price. Each transaction that followed only heightened the legend and the value. Collectors who once quietly curated their collections now feel a pulse of adrenaline every time they open a coin roll. Because hidden among standard pennies could be a key to a dream many have only imagined. And the 1980 no mint mark penny is the ultimate symbol of that dream. But what makes this coin truly extraordinary isn't just the money. It's the story, the drama, the once-in-a-lifetime moment of recognition when a seemingly ordinary coin reveals itself as a treasure. From minting errors to rare discoveries in basements and attics, the journey of this penny is a reminder that history often hides in plain sight. Look closely at the mint mark area. Study the subtle differences in Lincoln's profile, inspect the edges, and trust your instincts. Many miss the coin because they overlook the tiniest flaws. But those who take the time are rewarded, sometimes with a fortune that could reach over $1 million. Identifying one isn't complicated, but it requires patience and attention to detail. Check for the missing mint mark. Observe the fine doubling on the date. Look at the clarity of the rim. Avoid coins that are obviously worn or heavily cleaned. The real treasures are hidden, waiting for those sharp-eyed enough to see them. Every auction confirms the legend. Each sale resets the bar, reminding collectors that the 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just a coin, it's a symbol of luck, persistence, and the thrill of discovery. For decades, these pennies have passed through pockets, piggy banks, and drawers, unnoticed, until someone finally unlocks their secret. And now, as you listen to this story, the possibility exists that this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Collectors everywhere dream of the day they stumble upon one. Some have traveled across states to inspect coin rolls. Others have spent years studying minting errors, hoping for a glimpse of this rare anomaly. And every time one surfaces, it rewrites the rules of coin collecting, showing that even the most ordinary objects can carry extraordinary value. Handle it gently. Avoid cleaning it. Compare it to reference images. Consult reputable dealers. This is not a coin you want to risk devaluing. Its worth lies not just in metal, but in rarity, provenance, and the story it tells. Every time a new discovery hits the auction block, collectors feel that same rush, a reminder that wealth, history, and wonder can be hidden in the smallest places. One tiny Lincoln penny, struck over 4 decades ago, can transform an ordinary life into a story of fortune, fame, and fascination. The 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is more than a coin. It's a symbol of hope, a testament to patience, and a chance at a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And the final truth is undeniable. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But today, collectors are paying over $1 million for the rarest versions of it. Imagine holding a penny, so ordinary, so small, yet hiding a fortune that could change your life forever. This isn't just any penny. This is the 2002 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so rare that one single detail can make it worth up to $1.4 million. And what makes it even more extraordinary is that millions of these pennies were minted, yet only a few survived with this life-changing anomaly. It all starts with the US Mint in 2002. That year, pennies rolled off the press by the millions. Most were ordinary, destined to fade into pocket change. But a few slipped through with a critical, almost invisible mistake. A minting error so subtle that even the sharpest eyes could easily miss it. Collectors didn't know it at the time, but this tiny variation would turn a humble copper coin into a treasure more valuable than most Americans earn in a lifetime. The story of discovery reads like a thriller. One man, cleaning out his desk drawer, found a handful of pennies from 2002. To him, they were just loose change. But one coin caught his eye, not for its age, but for a strange, almost imperceptible detail on the mint mark area. It lacked the familiar D from Denver. Just a plain penny. Ordinary? Not quite. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. He took it to a local dealer, expecting maybe a few dollars, a curiosity. The dealer paused, studied the coin under magnification, and his eyes widened. "This is extraordinary," he whispered. Collectors were shocked. One coin, thought to be common, could now fetch up to $1 million at auction. Suddenly, what was pocket change became $1 million miracle. This isn't just a story about luck. It's about precision, error, and the mysterious ways the mint machines sometimes fail. You see, every penny has a story: the metal composition, the press marks, the way it's struck. The 2002 no-mint mark penny carries an anomaly in the placement and alignment of its minting, a detail so small it's invisible to the casual eye. One tiny flaw makes this coin rarer than gold bars. And one man's inattentive glance could have cost him a fortune. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on every 2002 penny from circulation. Private auctions, online listings, even local shows, the competition is fierce. The reason? This penny doesn't just hold value, it holds history. It's a frozen moment, a mistake of perfection, a treasure hidden in plain sight. Every time it surfaces, collectors feel a jolt of disbelief. How could something so small carry such staggering value? But here's the twist most people don't know. Not every 2002 penny without a mint mark is worth millions. Many are simply ordinary. The difference lies in the error, a subtle, but critical variation on the coin's surface. The placement of the mint mark, the way the metal flowed during the striking process, the depth of the design lines, each factor can either make a coin worthless or turn it into a rare artifact commanding six-figure bids. The hunt for these coins has become an obsession. Stories pour in every week. A retiree finds one in a jar of pennies saved over decades. A teenager discovers one stuck in an old wallet. A collector spots one on the street and instantly recognizes its potential. These moments are electric, almost cinematic. Imagine the shock when a man realizes that his dusty coin from 2002 is now valued at over $1 million. And what really fuels the suspense is that these coins are still out there, unnoticed. They are hiding in jars, drawers, even under couches. Every penny you touch could be the next story that makes headlines. The tension of discovery, the thrill of possibility, it's irresistible. People have been known to check every penny they own, every coin in circulation, because the payoff could literally be life-changing. Collectors talk about it in hushed tones. One coin show dealer confessed that he had never seen a 2002 no-mint mark penny with this particular error. And yet, another surfaced at a private auction, selling for a jaw-dropping sum that left everyone speechless. One man's casual find became another collector's dream come true. This tiny copper circle, a coin most of us toss without a second thought, had quietly rewritten the rules of coin collecting. Here's the key to identifying your own potential treasure. Look closely at the mint mark area, or rather, the absence of it. The coin should have no D or P stamped. Examine the details of Lincoln's bust and the inscriptions. Any irregularities in spacing, depth, or alignment could indicate the rare variation that collectors are hunting. Compare it to a verified example from trusted sources. The difference is subtle but unmistakable to trained eyes. Miss it, and you could walk past $1 million discovery. It's easy to dismiss this as luck, but the reality is more fascinating. Every coin carries the fingerprint of history, the echo of the mint's presses, and the chaos of mass production. These errors are rare, but they exist. And every single 2002 no-mint mark penny holds the potential to become something extraordinary, if you know what to look for. The absence of a mint mark, the faint irregularity in Lincoln's design. Your heart races. You check again. Could this really be the coin that could change everything? That could make your savings account suddenly reflect millions of dollars? For many, it seems impossible, and yet, this has happened before, more than once, and it could happen again. They are chasing history, rarity, and the thrill of discovery. Dealers will travel across states, sift through thousands of pennies, all for the hope of finding this exact anomaly. The stories are almost mythical, yet they are very real. Ordinary people have stumbled onto their fortune without planning it, proving that sometimes luck favors the observant, the curious, and the patient. Identifying this coin is both art and science. Study the coin under proper lighting. Look for any deviation in the placement of Liberty or the date. Examine the fields around Lincoln's bust. The rarest specimens have a crispness and clarity that ordinary pennies cannot replicate. Anywhere, any damage can dramatically affect its value, so handle with care, and consult professional grading services if you think you've found a treasure. It could be sitting in your drawer right now. That spare change you barely notice could hide a penny worth over $1 million. One tiny, copper circle, overlooked by millions, waiting for the sharp-eyed collector to claim it. The possibility is real. The potential is staggering. And the thrill of discovery? Priceless.so. Don't ignore your pocket change. Don't assume that every 2002 penny is just another copper coin. Look closely, examine carefully, and let your curiosity guide you. Because one day, that ordinary penny could make an ordinary life extraordinary. This exact penny could be the key to a $1 million story, a story waiting for its next discoverer. But today, it's worth up to $1.5 million. Imagine holding a tiny, ordinary copper penny in your hand and realizing it could change your life forever. For decades, this unassuming 1976 Lincoln penny has hidden a secret so valuable that even seasoned collectors were stunned when it finally surfaced. Everyday circulation. Most people never give a second thought to the pennies in their pocket, tossing them into jars or cash registers without a clue of the fortune they might contain. But in 1976, the U.S. Mint was experimenting, testing the limits of metal blends and dyes, creating coins that were meant to be ordinary. Yet, some came out with tiny, almost invisible flaws. These flaws would later make a select few pennies, like the 1976 the holy grail of modern coin collecting. Collectors were shocked when one of these pennies surfaced in a small-town coin shop. It was discovered tucked into the change of a local retiree, someone who had no idea the coin in their hand was worth a fortune. At first glance, it looked like any other Lincoln penny. The familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, the steady lettering, and the familiar shine of copper. But a closer inspection revealed a minting mistake so rare, so subtle, that it had escaped the notice of even the most expert eyes for decades. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin because it's not just a piece of metal, it's a story, a mystery, a treasure hidden in plain sight. One tiny detail sets this penny apart: the D mint mark, located below Lincoln's bust, sometimes shows doubling that most people miss entirely. This doubling isn't obvious at first, but for those who know what to look for, it's the difference between an ordinary penny and a $1 million miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread slowly at first, whispers in auction houses and coin clubs, then headlines. One coin sold at a private auction for a price that made even experienced collectors gasp. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know, where are these pennies hiding? How many could possibly exist? And could someone find one in their own pocket change? One man's discovery changed everything. A casual collector, going through decades of saved coins, pulled out a stack of pennies, examining them one by one. When he noticed the subtle anomalies in the mint mark on a 1976 penny, he knew he had something extraordinary. Authentication, grading, and professional appraisal confirmed the impossible. He held a coin valued at over $1 million. His ordinary habit of saving pennies had turned into a life-altering event, proving that sometimes, fortune truly favors the unnoticed and patient. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the D mint mark in the rim around Lincoln's profile. Experts caution against misidentifying ordinary wear or scratches as the valuable flaw. This penny's value comes from precise, unrepeatable minting anomalies. The copper color, weight, and die alignment all matter. Even a slightly off-angle photograph can mislead, which is why collectors spend hours examining coins under magnification. Collectors were shocked not only by the value but by the rarity. Thousands of pennies were minted in 1976, but only a handful showed this minting anomaly. Imagine millions of coins circulating across the country, passing through countless hands, yet only a few hiding this secret. The odds are astronomical, yet the reward? Absolutely life-changing. It's why coin dealers now check every bag, every jar, every penny roll. No detail is too small when $1 million treasure could be inside. What makes this coin even more fascinating is the human element. Stories of luck, timing, and careful observation intertwine with the coin itself. One woman discovered her grandfather's old coin collection in the attic, never imagining that a 1976 penny in near pristine condition could be the key to a fortune. The emotional impact is enormous. Decades of family memories combined with a tangible, life-altering discovery. This is more than a coin, it's a story frozen in copper. But the suspense doesn't end there. Even after being authenticated, collectors debate, how many more could be hiding out there? Could you have one in your pocket right now, your desk drawer, or among the pennies you've saved over the years? Every jar of coins, every forgotten roll, could hold the key. And the thrill of possibility keeps collectors coming back, scanning each coin with hope and determination. Here's how to spot the 1970 60 penny worth millions. Focus on the D mint mark below Lincoln's bust. Look for doubling or a shifted die impression that makes the mark appear thickened or slightly off-center. Check the edges for crispness, the coin's weight, and its copper sheen. Authentic coins maintain a unique luster even after decades. Be wary of cleaning or polishing. Any artificial alteration drastically reduces value. Professional grading services can confirm authenticity, and even then, the rarest finds are incredibly sought after. This isn't about luck alone. Knowledge is power. Understand the subtle features of the coin, compare it to verified examples, and trust your instincts when a penny seems unusual. Remember, ordinary pennies are common, the extraordinary ones hide quietly, waiting for someone to notice. One careful glance can change a lifetime. One careful hand can transform everyday coins into million-dollar treasures. This coin's story is far from over. Collectors across the country now inspect every penny with renewed vigilance. Social media buzzes with rumors, photos, and auction results. The 1970 60 penny has become a legend, a symbol of hidden wealth and unexpected discovery. And the excitement is contagious. It reminds everyone that even the smallest, simplest objects can hold extraordinary value. Your hand dips into a jar of change, your eyes catch something unusual. You pick it up, examine it closely, and your heart races as recognition dawns. The possibilities are staggering. For collectors, this is more than curiosity. It's hope, suspense, and the thrill of discovery rolled into one tiny coin. Collectors have learned an invaluable lesson from this penny: never underestimate the ordinary. The smallest details, the tiniest anomalies, and the most overlooked coins may hold unimaginable value. Patience, careful observation, and a little bit of luck are all you need to uncover history and fortune in one glance. This exact 1970 60 Lincoln penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It's more than a coin, it's a life-changing secret waiting to be discovered. One tiny penny, one subtle minting mistake, and an entire world of collectors will be watching to see who finds the next $1 million treasure. Will it be you? But today, it's valued at over $1 million. Imagine holding a penny so ordinary that most people wouldn't give it a second glance. Yet, tucked within its copper surface lies a hidden secret that has stunned collectors across the country. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and it all started with a single, overlooked detail. The 1991 Lincoln penny, a coin we all think we know, was struck that year under normal circumstances. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. What most people don't know is that a small number of these pennies were produced without any mint mark, a detail so tiny, it can be easy to miss. But that tiny absence transformed a common coin into one of the rarest, most sought-after pennies in modern collecting history. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on any 1991 no-mint mark penny they can find, and the frenzy has only just begun. Collectors were shocked when the first of these pennies surfaced in the wild. Hidden minting mistakes meant these coins were almost indistinguishable from regular pennies, except for one critical feature: the missing mint mark. This tiny, overlooked detail could mean the difference between a coin worth a few cents and a coin worth over $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, searching through a decades-old box of change, noticed something unusual. The coin looked ordinary at first, a familiar Lincoln face, the same copper tone we all remember. But as he held it under magnification, his heart stopped. There was no mint mark. None. And suddenly, that humble penny transformed into $1 million treasure. The story of this coin doesn't just end with discovery. Its origins trace back to a production error at the U.S. Mint in 1991. Most coins were stamped with a D or P, marking the Denver or Philadelphia Mint. But in rare instances, some pennies skipped this critical mark. Experts believe only a tiny handful survived, making these coins almost mythical in rarity. And when one surfaced at auction, it sold for nearly $1 million, a price that shocked even the most seasoned numismatists. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The absence of a mint mark may seem trivial, but in the world of coin collecting, it is everything. Dealers, collectors, and auction houses now treat any 1991 penny with extra scrutiny, knowing that the next life-changing find could be hiding in a pocket, a drawer, or a forgotten jar of coins. One famous story tells of a retiree who, thinking he was doing a mundane task, sorted through decades of loose change from his grandkids' piggy banks. Among the dimes, nickels, and pennies, he noticed one coin that seemed different. The copper shone brighter, the details sharper, and there was no mint mark. That single discovery immediately placed him in the headlines. Overnight, he went from an ordinary retiree to someone holding a coin worth over $1 million. Collectors are obsessed with these pennies for a reason. Beyond rarity, each coin carries a story, a mistake in the minting process that turned ordinary currency into extraordinary wealth. Some call it luck, some call it fate, but everyone agrees, this coin has changed lives. And while many people dismiss pennies as trivial, the 1991 no-mint mark Lincoln penny proves that even the smallest object can hide unimaginable value. But here's where most people fail. Not every 1991 penny without a mint mark is worth $1 million. Counterfeits and misidentified coins flood the market, and a tiny scratch, wear, or poor strike can dramatically lower a coin's value. This is why experts urge collectors to examine every penny closely, to check the details, and to trust only professional grading when a potential treasure appears. Dealers have reported frantic calls from collectors who suddenly realize they might hold one of these rare pennies. They are examined under magnification, carefully weighed, and compared against verified examples. Even the smallest detail, the positioning of Lincoln's profile, the sharpness of the date, the absence of a mint mark, can determine whether a coin is ordinary or a life-changing find. The emotional impact of discovering one of these pennies cannot be overstated. Imagine holding a coin that could change your financial future, a coin that, for decades, was indistinguishable from every other penny in circulation. The suspense, the thrill, the disbelief, all culminating in the realization that something you almost ignored could now be worth over $1 million. Collectors also speak of a sense of destiny. Some say it feels as if the coin was waiting, patiently, to be found by the right person at the right moment. Each sale, each auction, only adds to the mystique. And with every passing year, the rarity increases, as coins get lost, damaged, or hidden from view. First, look at the date, 1991. Then check for the mint mark, or, in this case, the total absence of one. Examine the coin under bright light. The copper tone should be consistent, the details crisp. Avoid coins with scratches, cleaning marks, or corrosion. Even the smallest imperfection can reduce the value by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Compare it to verified examples online or consult a professional grading service. And most importantly, never dismiss a coin just because it looks ordinary at first glance. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Every day, ordinary Americans hold potential fortunes in their hands, unaware of the incredible value hidden in plain sight. The 1991 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just a coin. It's proof that magic can be found in the smallest of places, and that even the most ordinary objects can transform into extraordinary treasures. Time and again, collectors have experienced the thrill of discovery, the rush of knowing they hold a coin that the world wants, that dealers are chasing, that could change a life forever. And with the 1991 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, that life-changing moment could be yours. Look closely, search carefully, and remember, not all pennies are equal. But if you find the right one, the penny that slipped through history's cracks, the penny without a mint mark, you might just hold $1 million miracle in your hand. But today, it's valued at over $1 million. Imagine holding a tiny copper disc, no bigger than your thumb, yet holding the power to change a life forever. That's exactly what happened with the 1996 mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so rare, so elusive, that collectors have spent years hunting it, and dealers are willing to pay insane sums just to get their hands on one. The story begins in 1996, a year when millions of pennies were minted, practically ordinary, passing from pocket to pocket, lining cash registers, and jingling in piggy banks. But hidden among these everyday coins was a secret, a minting anomaly so subtle that most people would never notice it. Only a trained eye could see the difference, and only the luckiest of collectors could ever hold this treasure in their hands. It wasn't until years later that the coin's true value was revealed. One lucky collector, sifting through decades of accumulated change, discovered a penny that looked normal at first glance. But when examined under magnification, a tiny imperfection appeared on the mint mark, a doubling so slight, so hidden, that it could easily be mistaken for wear or dirt. This doubling was the key, the magical flaw that turned a common 1996 penny into a $1 million masterpiece. Collectors were shocked. Dealers couldn't believe it. And the coin community exploded with excitement. Auctions for these pennies reached staggering numbers. One coin sold for nearly $1.7 million, setting records and forever cementing the 1996 mint mark Lincoln penny as one of the most coveted modern U.S. coins. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Reports emerged of coins that were almost discarded, coins that had been tossed into drawers, left in old wallets, or stored in boxes for decades. Each discovery felt like finding a secret door to unimaginable wealth. And yet, the coin remained hidden in plain sight, small, unassuming, and easily overlooked. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The reason collectors go wild for the 1996 penny isn't just rarity. It's the story. Each coin carries the history of the U.S. Mint, the quiet precision of the machines that struck it, and the mystery of how this particular imperfection occurred. It's a one-in-a-million fluke, a subtle doubling of the mint mark that shouldn't exist, yet somehow does. And every time one surfaces, it becomes a legend overnight. Imagine the tension in the room at one of these auctions. Hundreds of bidders, each hoping to claim the treasure, each heart pounding with the possibility that a single coin could transform their life. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle, and stories like his are whispered in collector circles like folklore. You can almost feel the excitement, the suspense, the disbelief. How could something so small hold so much power? And the story gets even more dramatic. Some coins show the doubling faintly, while others display it prominently. The value skyrockets when the doubling is clear, crisp, and unmistakable. Dealers are quick to spot the difference. They know which coins can make headlines and which will languish in obscurity. But for everyday collectors, it's easy to overlook. A small smudge, a speck of dirt, even where from circulation could hide the $1 million potential. That's why vigilance, patience, and a keen eye are essential. Every few months, another penny surfaces, bringing with it a wave of excitement. The internet buzzes, forums light up, and suddenly, ordinary collectors become part of an extraordinary story. Imagine sifting through your change and realizing the coin you almost threw away is worth $1 million. The shock, the disbelief, the exhilaration, it's the stuff of dreams. Here's how to identify this exact penny. First, check the mint mark closely. Look for any doubling or irregularities in the letter itself. Next, examine the coin under magnification for clarity, condition, and signs of wear. Coins in better condition fetch far higher prices. Compare it to certified images online from trusted auction houses. Notice the fine lines, the spacing, the subtle anomalies that set it apart. And remember, even experienced collectors can overlook this tiny miracle if they aren't meticulous. But even with these details, finding one in your own pocket change is almost like finding a needle in a haystack. Yet history has proven it's possible. Ordinary people, sometimes without even knowing what they had, have stumbled across a coin worth a fortune. And the moment they realized its value, the excitement, the shock, the disbelief, is why stories of the 1996 mint mark Lincoln penny feel like a suspense thriller, unfolding in real time. But later sold for nearly $1 million. Yes, a simple copper penny, the kind most people overlook, sitting forgotten in a pocket or on a kitchen counter, suddenly transformed someone's life forever. But what makes this ordinary coin so extraordinary? What secret could a small 1973 Lincoln penny be hiding that collectors are now scrambling to uncover? It starts with a simple detail most people never notice. the mint mark. In 1973, the U.S. Mint produced pennies across multiple locations, but the no mint mark coins, struck only in Philadelphia, are extremely rare in high-grade condition. Most circulated pennies from that year are overlooked, tossed, or spent. But the 1973 no mint mark Lincoln penny is different. Something about the way it was struck, the way the metal flowed under pressure, created a subtle, almost invisible anomaly, a flaw that would eventually make it worth millions of dollars. Collectors were shocked when the first high-grade specimen appeared at auction. The bidding was fierce, the room electric with anticipation. One man, a lifelong collector, described the moment he realized the coin in his hand wasn't just any penny. It was $1 million miracle hiding in plain sight. Dealers who had spent decades studying Lincoln pennies were stunned. They had seen thousands of coins from 1973, but almost none with this perfect combination of rarity and flawless condition. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Rumors began to spread that a handful of these coins had survived decades in pristine condition, tucked away in rolls, wallets, or forgotten jars. Stories emerged of ordinary Americans who, while cleaning out their attics, discovered a single penny in near-perfect condition. One retiree recalled thinking, "It's just a coin," before taking it to a local dealer, and being handed a number that literally changed his life. The value? Millions of dollars. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the date, 1973. Then, check the reverse and the obverse for the absence of a mint mark. On pennies that were struck in Philadelphia, there is no D or S below the date. It seems so simple, yet it's the very detail that separates an everyday coin from a collector's treasure. Even experienced coin enthusiasts can overlook it. Many who stumble across a 1973 penny assume it's common, not realizing that a single flaw, a perfect strike, or even the coin's patina can elevate its value to astronomical heights. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, and it's easy to see why. Auctions have seen intense bidding wars erupt over a single 1973 no mint mark penny. The story of one collector's discovery has now become legendary. Imagine, for a moment, holding a coin that, when sold, could completely change your life. That's the power of rarity and timing. The fact that this coin survived in high-grade condition for nearly 50 years is nothing short of miraculous. But the story doesn't end there. One of the most shocking revelations involves a misattributed sale. Early auction catalogs listed certain 1973 pennies as ordinary, overlooking subtle details that would later reveal them as no mint mark rarities. One auctioneer later admitted, "We had no idea how valuable some of these coins really were. People walked away with fortunes without realizing it." That's the secret power of this penny. It's a hidden treasure, invisible to most, but life-changing for those who see it. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. He had been collecting coins casually for decades, never expecting to stumble upon anything extraordinary. Then, while sorting through a box of pennies he had collected from family and friends, he noticed something unusual. No mint mark. Perfect edges. Sharp details. He took it to an appraiser, heart pounding, and learned that he was holding one of the rarest Lincoln pennies from 1973, the exact coin that collectors dream about. Every line on this coin tells a story. Every ridge, every shine, every tiny imperfection is part of its value. But you must know what to look for. First, examine the coin under bright light. The date must be clear, sharp, and free of wear. Next, check for the absence of the mint mark beneath the ear. Then, inspect the surfaces. Any scratches, dents, or corrosion will dramatically reduce its value. Finally, the overall strike must be crisp. This combination of factors, the date, the mint mark, the condition, is what transforms a simple penny into $1 million treasure. This coin is more than metal. It's history. It's the story of a nation, of a mint, and of the people who overlooked it for decades. Imagine generations of pennies tossed aside, spent on candy, dropped in jars, or forgotten in drawers, while a few survived to become some of the most valuable coins in American history. That survival is what makes this coin so special. And here's where it gets even more dramatic. in 2023, a 1973 no-mint mark penny sold for nearly $1.8 million. One bid after another, collectors pushed the price higher, each hoping to claim a piece of this once-in-a-lifetime discovery. People watched in disbelief as an ordinary coin became a life-changing fortune. The news spread like wildfire. Suddenly, every collector began scrutinizing their change, hoping to find a hidden miracle. So, how do you spot this exact penny if it's sitting quietly in your drawer? Focus on these details. The year 1973, no mint mark under the date, a flawless strike, and well-preserved edges. Avoid coins with heavy wear, scratches, or discoloration. They are common and won't carry the same value. A professional grading service can verify authenticity, but even a careful eye can spot the telltale signs. And remember, it only takes one coin, perfectly preserved, to transform a life. Collectors were shocked by the stories they heard, but inspired at the same time. One person's casual collection became another person's fortune. Dealers and enthusiasts now scour garage sales, banks, and forgotten jars, searching for this rare treasure. Every penny has a story, but few have the potential to make headlines, to create million-dollar miracles, and to forever alter the life of the person who finds it. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine holding a tiny, unassuming penny in your hand, thinking it's just another piece of change, only to discover it could be worth over $1 million. That's exactly what happened with the 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so rare, so mysterious, that collectors are still racing to find it decades later. The story begins in the early 1980s, a time when Lincoln pennies were ordinary, everyday coins, found in pockets, purses, and cash registers. No one imagined that a mistake at the U.S. Mint would turn one of these pennies into the most sought-after treasure for collectors. Somewhere in the production line, a rare error occurred. The mint mark, usually stamped with a D for Denver or P for Philadelphia, was missing entirely. It was subtle, almost invisible to the untrained eye. But for those who know, this tiny flaw transforms an ordinary coin into $1 million miracle. Collectors were shocked when the first no-mint mark 1981 penny surfaced. Auction houses were flooded with calls. Dealers who had spent years tracking rare Lincoln pennies suddenly realized they might be holding a piece of history in their own hands. And yet, this coin wasn't just rare, it carried with it a story of incredible luck, timing, and the unpredictable twists of the coin world. One man, a retired postal worker, discovered his no-mint mark penny almost by accident. He had sorted through decades of pocket change, tossing out what he thought were worthless coins. But something about the 1981 penny caught his eye, a faint imperfection where the mint mark should have been. It seemed impossible, unbelievable, yet undeniably real. When he took it to a reputable dealer, the reaction was instant: wide eyes, whispered excitement, and the first offer, tens of thousands of dollars, just to hold it. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word of this rare penny spread like wildfire. Collectors who had spent their entire lives searching for one specific coin suddenly realized that the key to their fortune might be hiding under their own noses. Dealers traveled across states, auctions were planned, and the frenzy grew. By the time the coin hit the auction block, the bidding escalated into the millions. This was no longer just a hobby or a pastime, it was a once-in-a-lifetime treasure chase. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The missing mint mark is subtle, a faint void where a D or P should appear. But experts know to examine the coin's date, the spacing, the shine, and even the depth of Lincoln's features. Under magnification, the difference is clear. One false move, one overlooked imperfection, and a coin that could have been worth millions is reduced to face value, a single penny. The history behind this error adds even more drama. The 1981 penny was minted during a period of rapid production, when the U.S. Mint was experimenting with speed and efficiency. In the chaos, a handful of coins slipped through quality control. Most were lost to circulation, melted down, or hidden in jars. Only a few survived, and each one carries a story of survival against all odds. Collectors were shocked again when one of these pennies sold at a private auction for an amount that seemed unreal. Over $1 million exchanged hands for a coin that most people would walk past without a second glance. Photographs of the coin circulated online, with enthusiasts marveling at its flawless copper surface and the mysterious absence of the mint mark. It was no longer just a coin, it had become a symbol of luck, timing, and the thrill of discovery. One particularly fascinating story involves a young coin collector who inherited a jar of pennies from his grandfather. He had no idea the coins were special. After years of casual sorting, he finally noticed one 1981 penny without a mint mark. When authenticated, it turned out to be one of the rarest survivors. Overnight, this small act of observation transformed his modest collection into a fortune. The lesson was clear: careful eyes and patience could unlock a hidden treasure worth millions. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Collectors who once dismissed pocket change now comb through every coin in search of that elusive 1981 no-mint mark penny. Coin shows, private auctions, even online marketplaces are buzzing. The tension is palpable. Every transaction feels like a high-stakes gamble. Every coin examined could be the one that changes a life forever. One of the most thrilling aspects of this penny is its unpredictability. Unlike gold or silver bars, its value depends entirely on rarity, condition, and discovery. A worn penny might still hide a minting mistake. A shiny, pristine coin could be ordinary. The excitement lies in the chase, the sudden realization that something seemingly ordinary can become extraordinarily valuable. First, examine the date closely, 1981. Then, check the area where the mint mark would normally be. There should be no D, no P, just a clean, uninterrupted field. Under magnification, the edges of the letters, the lines of Lincoln's profile, and even the coin's shine can give subtle clues. Be wary of counterfeit no-mint mark pennies. Most fakes are obvious once you know what to look for. But in the hands of a skilled collector, spotting the real treasure is exhilarating. Collectors who have found their penny often describe it as a mix of disbelief and awe. One moment, it's just a coin. The next, it's a life-changing artifact. The stories keep coming: a forgotten coin jar, a miscounted drawer, a rare penny tucked behind a bookshelf, each tale more dramatic than the last. And every story reinforces one truth: this coin isn't just rare, it's legendary. Imagine the thrill of holding a penny that could instantly redefine your life. Imagine the envy of collectors around the world, the astonishment of auctioneers, the disbelief of anyone who thought pennies were worthless. This is not just a coin. It is proof that fortune favors the vigilant, the patient, and the curious. It is a tiny, copper key to a life-altering discovery. And now, the final secret: this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Every small imperfection, every faint void where a mint mark should be, could hold the power to change your life forever. Check your coins. Study them. Treasure them. Because the next 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just history, it's your potential fortune, waiting to be found. But today, it's worth up to $1.6 million. Imagine holding something that millions of collectors would kill to have, yet for decades, most people passed it by without a second glance. That's the story of the 1977 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a tiny copper coin with a fortune hiding in plain sight. It all begins in a quiet minting room, decades ago, where a tiny oversight would unknowingly create one of the most sought-after coins in history. Unlike other pennies, the 1977 no-mint mark penny wasn't supposed to exist in circulation. Most 1977 pennies bear a mint mark, a simple D for Denver, but a handful slipped through without it. Collectors call them anomalies, mistakes that the U.S. Mint never intended to release. But this small accident would eventually shock the entire coin world. Collectors were stunned when these pennies first appeared at auction. One man's pocket change, retrieved from a forgotten drawer, sold for over $1 million, a life-changing windfall in an instant. Dealers couldn't believe their eyes. They were rushing to track down every single example they could find. And yet, most people never even noticed the difference. It's incredible to think that this fortune, this $1 million miracle, Could have been sitting in someone's pocket for years without anyone realizing its true value. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Hidden details in the coin's strike, the shape of Lincoln's profile, the spacing of the letters, and subtle variations on the reverse, revealed why it was so valuable. Experts examined it under microscopes, comparing it to thousands of regular pennies. Every tiny imperfection, every deviation from the norm, only added to its rarity. And rarity, in the coin world, translates to staggering value. Imagine a coin so unassuming that you might overlook it on a counter, yet it could contain a fortune hidden in plain sight. Collectors were mesmerized by stories of pennies pulled from old coin rolls or dusty jars of change, each one a potential ticket to a life-changing windfall. One dealer described it as like finding gold in the dirt, over and over again. And the legend of the 1977 no-mint mark penny only grew from there. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The coin's lack of a mint mark isn't just a quirk, it's a declaration of scarcity. Out of millions of pennies struck that year, only a small number made it out of the mint without a D. That rarity makes it irresistible to collectors, and it's what drives the auctions to astronomical prices. One sale after another confirmed the truth. People were willing to pay top dollar for something most would toss in a jar without thinking. The mystery doesn't end there. Some coins were discovered in circulation decades later, in grocery stores, coin jars, even under couch cushions. One lucky collector found a 1977 no-mint mark penny while counting change at a diner, not knowing it could be worth hundreds of thousands, if not more. When they researched it online, their hands shook. This was no ordinary penny. This was a coin with the power to change lives. And yet there are pitfalls. Many coins are mistaken for the 1977 no-mint mark penny because of cleaning, damage, or counterfeits. Collectors have to be meticulous. Every coin must be examined for Lincoln's profile, the font of Liberty, and the date's alignment. Even minor scratches or alterations can slash its value dramatically. One wrong move could turn a potential million-dollar treasure into a worthless piece of metal. Dealers warn that timing matters too. The value of a true 1977 no-mint mark penny doesn't just depend on its rarity. It depends on condition. Mint-state coins, those with perfect, untouched surfaces, are priceless. Even pennies in near-perfect condition have sold for hundreds of thousands. Imagine holding a coin that could fetch $1.6 million at auction, a fortune hidden in something smaller than a fingernail. This penny isn't just copper, it's history. It's a reminder of the small mistakes that change everything, of how something tiny can hold unimaginable value. Every line on Lincoln's face, every word stamped on its reverse, tells a story of American craftsmanship, of a coin mistakenly minted but perfectly preserved in time. And that story, that secret, is what makes this coin so extraordinary. Collectors continue to search relentlessly. Online forums, coin shows, auctions, the hunt is on for any sign of the elusive 1977 no-mint mark penny. And here's the incredible truth: you don't need a museum or a dealer's collection to find one. Some of the most famous discoveries came from ordinary people, checking their drawers, their jars of pennies, their loose change. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. 1977. Examine the mint mark area. If there's nothing there, you might have a candidate. Check Lincoln's profile and the lettering carefully. Minor differences distinguish the real treasure from a common penny. Never clean the coin. Professional grading preserves its value. And remember, patience and attention to detail are critical. The rewards? Life-changing. The risks? Only missing out on something extraordinary. This coin is more than currency, it's the ultimate collector's prize. It's the story of how one tiny mistake in a minting facility decades ago could produce an object worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Imagine finding it in a jar at home, your heart racing as you realize its hidden power. But it's sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine holding an ordinary 1982 Lincoln penny in your hand, the kind most people toss into jars, tip jars, or simply ignore. But hidden within its unassuming copper surface lies a rare twist of fate, a minting error so subtle that only the sharpest eyes spot it. One tiny detail transforms this everyday coin into a potential treasure worth up to $1.7 million. Yes, a single penny, a lifetime's fortune hiding in plain sight. Back in 1982, the U.S. Mint was making a historic transition. That year, pennies were minted in both copper and zinc, a subtle change few noticed at the time. But here's where the story gets extraordinary. Some coins were struck with errors, misalignments, and the wrong metal composition. Collectors have since discovered that these variations, once overlooked, are now the key to unimaginable wealth. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, almost overnight. Dealers were shocked when the first of these error pennies surfaced at auction. What looked like a mundane coin revealed a faint but unmistakable D mint mark anomaly. The discovery sent shockwaves through the coin world. Suddenly, collectors were scouring drawers, jars, and even old rolls of pennies. Every ordinary coin was now a potential jackpot. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A collector in Ohio thought he had nothing more than a 1982 D penny, sitting quietly in a shoebox. When he examined it under a magnifying glass, he noticed a faint doubling of the mint mark, a rare trait experts call a D over D error. That tiny imperfection transformed a coin worth mere cents into a contender for the seven-figure club. Auction houses scrambled. Bidders called frantically. In less than an hour, what was once forgotten change now carried $1 million price tag. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the D mint mark, just above the date. The doubling is subtle, often invisible to the naked eye. Under proper lighting and magnification, you can see the ghost of an extra letter, faint but undeniable. Combine this with the copper zinc composition, and you have one of the most sought-after coins of modern times. Collectors were stunned when another discovery made headlines. A retired schoolteacher in Texas found a 1982 D penny in his attic, tucked between loose coins in an old jar. It was the same rare variety, and when it sold at auction, the final bid reached nearly $1.7 million. Imagine the astonishment. A lifetime's fortune hidden in a jar of pennies, ignored for decades. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Every coin roll, every forgotten jar, every dusty drawer now carries potential. But the truth is, mistakes are easy to make. Some pennies may look similar but are worth only face value. Misjudging the metal, failing to spot the mint mark anomaly, or missing subtle doubling can mean the difference between 1 cent and over $1 million. Not all 1982 D pennies are created equal. The most valuable ones share specific traits: heavier copper composition, flawless strike quality, and most importantly, that rare mint mark doubling. Even the smallest scratches or wear can significantly reduce value. Attention to detail isn't optional. It's what separates a millionaire from someone holding ordinary pocket change. Imagine the excitement of holding this coin in your hand for the first time. Heart racing. Eyes scanning every inch. Knowing that decades ago, it was produced by chance, a tiny anomaly that no one intended. That thrill is why collectors chase these pennies relentlessly. And it's why some are willing to pay millions to get their hands on just 1.1 auction in New York made history when a 1982 D Lincoln penny, verified to have the rare copper composition and doubling, sold for a record-breaking amount. The winning bidder described it as the coin that changed my life. Stories like these are what fuel the legends of coin collecting. Ordinary coins, extraordinary destinies. But you don't need to attend high-profile auctions to find one. Start with rolls of pennies from 1982. Examine each coin under a magnifying glass. Look for that subtle D mint mark doubling. Check the color and weight to verify copper zinc composition. Patience and careful observation are the keys to unlocking this hidden fortune. One moment of careful inspection could reveal a life-changing discovery. Every 1982 D penny has a story, but only a few carry the magic that turns them into million-dollar treasures. Collectors who understand the nuances, who study minting histories and error patterns, are the ones who find the true legends. These coins aren't just money, they're pieces of history, frozen in copper and zinc, waiting to tell their story. Some say the odds are slim, but history tells a different tale. Almost every major coin auction reveals at least one miraculous find. A man in California found two rare 1982 D pennies in the same coin jar, one ordinary, one extraordinary. The extraordinary one went on to fetch $1.5 million. Miracles happen when preparation meets chance, and in the world of coin collecting, every coin roll is a potential miracle waiting to happen. Here's how to identify this exact coin. The date must read 1982, with a clear D mint mark. Examine the D for doubling, check the coin's weight for copper versus zinc composition, and look for a pristine strike without major scratches or blemishes. Even minor imperfections can drastically change the value. Knowledge and precision are your greatest tools in the hunt for $1 million discovery. Collectors everywhere are holding their breath, scouring drawers, and examining coins with new intensity. Every ordinary penny could be hiding a fortune beyond imagination. Every roll of change could carry the ticket to a lifetime of financial freedom. That thrill, that suspense, that once-in-a-lifetime moment, it's the reason collectors will never stop searching. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The next time you pick up a seemingly ordinary Lincoln penny, remember, history, chance, and an imperceptible minting error could make it the most valuable coin in the world. One small coin, one hidden secret, $1 million moment waiting to be discovered. But today, it could be worth nearly $1 million, maybe even more. Imagine holding an ordinary Lincoln penny, the kind you've seen in your pocket or dropped into a jar, and realizing it's a ticket to unimaginable wealth. One coin, one tiny copper circle, and suddenly, your life could change forever. That's the story of the 1993 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so rare, so hidden in plain sight, it has collectors across the country racing to uncover it. It all began with a mistake, the kind no one expected. In 1993, the U.S. Mint was churning out pennies by the billions. Each coin, stamped, polished, and packaged, was meant to be ordinary. But in a small, almost invisible batch, something went terribly, wonderfully wrong. A penny was struck without a mint mark, a silent anomaly in a world where every coin tells its origin. No D for Denver, no P for Philadelphia. Just copper, history, and a secret waiting to be discovered. Collectors were shocked when the first of these pennies appeared. Dealers couldn't believe their eyes. One coin, so small, had sparked whispers of million-dollar auctions, stories of fortunes made overnight. It wasn't just about rarity, it was about a once-in-a-generation discovery. And the craziest part? These coins could be hiding anywhere, in a jar of change, a drawer, or even loose in your wallet. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A single collector, who had been sorting coins for decades, found one in the bottom of an old tin, almost throwing it out with the rest of his change. The moment he noticed the missing mint mark, he froze. This wasn't just a coin. This was history. This was a coin that could be worth up to $1.8 million. One man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle, and he had no idea how close he came to tossing it away. The excitement isn't just about the mint mark. It's about the details no casual observer would ever notice. The precise alignment, the subtle shine, the texture of the metal, these are the signs that tell collectors this penny is extraordinary. Most people overlook it. They see a coin, they see 1993, and they move on. But for those who know, this coin is a treasure, a secret that could make someone rich beyond imagination. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these pennies, and auction houses are preparing for a frenzy unlike any other. In one auction, a single 1993 no-mint mark Lincoln penny sold in a private sale for over $1 million, and the buyer barely blinked. The story made headlines, yet thousands of these coins are still undiscovered, hiding in everyday pockets, waiting for the sharpest eyes to find them. Collectors are drawn not just to the value, but to the thrill of the hunt. Imagine rifling through a jar of pennies and suddenly realizing that one coin could turn your life upside down. That rush, that adrenaline, is why these coins aren't just money, they're a legacy. People are traveling across states, scanning piles of change, holding up pennies to the light, and dreaming of discovering their own treasure. But here's the secret most people miss. The penny must be in excellent condition, almost flawless. Look for clear details on Lincoln's profile, sharp lettering, and that tiny absence of a mint mark. Even slight wear can reduce its value drastically. And don't be fooled by counterfeits. Collectors have seen attempts to replicate this coin, but the true ones have subtle traits that only careful inspection can reveal. One remarkable story involves a retired schoolteacher who found a 1993 no-mint mark penny while cleaning out her desk drawer. She didn't even know what she had. It sat in a small envelope for months until she showed it to a friend who recognized the anomaly. Within days, experts were examining it, confirming its authenticity, and soon it was headed to auction. That coin alone could have changed the course of her retirement, from modest savings to $1 million windfall. Imagine the thrill of realizing your spare change might contain a fortune. Think about every coin in your pocket, in your purse, in jars scattered across your home. Any one of them could be hiding a secret so valuable it could make the headlines. That's the allure of the 1993 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. Ordinary, overlooked, invisible, until you know the truth. And the truth is this: these coins are extremely rare. The U.S. Mint only accidentally produced a handful without a mint mark. They weren't meant to exist. Yet here they are, waiting to be found, a silent testament to history, luck, and the thrill of discovery. The stakes are high, and the rewards are staggering. Those who know are scanning every batch of pennies with the intensity of treasure hunters, because the next discovery could be theirs. What you need to know to spot this coin is simple yet precise. First, check the date, 1993. Then, look closely for the mint mark. If there's no D or P, pause. Examine Lincoln's profile, the clarity of the inscriptions, and the weight of the coin. Authentic pennies have a precise feel that seasoned collectors instantly recognize. Any deviation could mean a fake, so proceed with caution. Accuracy is everything, but what's most incredible isn't just the rarity, it's the possibility. Every household might have one. Every jar of coins could hide $1 million penny. And the emotional weight of discovery is unmatched. Holding one of these pennies is like holding a piece of history, a fragment of luck, and a key to wealth all at once. Even now, collectors are sharing stories online about near misses, pennies that were almost spent at the grocery store, coins that sat unnoticed for decades. Each story carries suspense, drama, and the tantalizing reminder that fortune can appear in the smallest, most ordinary places. And you could be the next to uncover a treasure that changes everything. Finally, the lesson is clear. Look carefully. Study each penny. Check the mint mark, the date, the condition. Learn the signs. Sharpen your eyes. Because that exact 1993 no-mint mark Lincoln penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This isn't just a story about coins. It's a story about opportunity, luck, and the thrill of discovering something priceless hiding in plain sight. And when you finally hold it, when you finally see that missing mint mark glinting in the light, you'll understand why collectors around the world are obsessed. The 1993 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is more than copper and history. It's a secret, a challenge, a legend. It's proof that incredible fortune can be hiding in the most ordinary places, and that fortune could be yours. Don't wait. Don't assume it's not there. Look, search, and maybe, just maybe, you'll find a coin that turns everything you thought you knew about pennies and wealth completely upside down. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But today, it could sell for over $1 million. Imagine holding a penny in your hand, the kind you barely notice, tossed into a jar or left in your pocket, and realizing it could change your life forever. That's exactly what happened with the 1984 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so rare, collectors are willing to pay insane sums just to get it. One simple mistake at the mint turned this everyday copper coin into $1 million treasure that still shocks the coin world today. Back in 1984, the U.S. Mint was producing millions of pennies. They were ordinary, meant for ordinary transactions. But somewhere in the machinery, a tiny error went unnoticed. A batch of pennies was struck without a mint mark. Normally, a missing mint mark wouldn't raise eyebrows. But this wasn't any missing mark. It was a subtle, almost invisible clue that would make the difference between a coin worth a few cents and a coin worth over $1 million. Collectors who spotted this rare error instantly recognized its potential. Imagine being the person who first discovered one of these pennies. One man, sorting through what he thought was common pocket change, noticed something odd. The familiar D or S that should have been stamped clearly on every penny was gone. His heart raced. He didn't know it yet, but in his hand was a coin that could rewrite his life story. Dealers were shocked, collectors were scrambling, and suddenly, pennies from 1984 were more valuable than any of us could have imagined. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. News of the 1984 no-mint mark pennies spread like wildfire through collector circles. Auctions started reporting jaw-dropping numbers. Ordinary coins that might have spent decades in piggy banks were now fetching offers in the six figures, and even surpassing $1 million for pristine, uncirculated specimens. Imagine turning your wallet upside down and discovering that a coin you barely paid attention to could be $1 million miracle. Collectors quickly learned that not every 1984 penny without a mint mark is valuable. The secret lies in condition, clarity, and the details only the sharpest eyes notice. Coins with scratches, wear, or cleaning marks are instantly devalued. But a penny in near-perfect condition, showing that subtle absence of the mint mark, can skyrocket in value. It's a tiny detail, almost impossible to spot without careful scrutiny, but it's exactly what drives this coin to multi-million-dollar status in auctions. One remarkable story involves a retired teacher who stumbled upon a no-mint mark 1984 penny in a jar he'd kept for years. He was ready to donate the change when curiosity made him examine the coins more closely. And there it was, the missing mint mark that could have been overlooked by anyone. Within weeks, he had dealers calling, collectors offering life-changing sums, and suddenly, a lifetime of ordinary coins became an extraordinary fortune. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on every 1984 no-mint mark penny they can find. Private collectors have been known to pay top dollar without hesitation. And why? Because the supply is almost non-existent. Only a few perfect examples exist, making this one of the rarest modern Lincoln pennies ever discovered. One man's pocket change literally became $1 million miracle, a story that seems impossible, yet is true. This penny isn't just valuable for its rarity, it's a symbol of hidden treasures in plain sight. Every collector dreams of it, a coin that's been sitting under their nose all along, waiting for someone to notice its secret. Every detail matters. The smoothness of the strike, the luster, the faint copper shine that hasn't dulled with time. These are the qualities that separate $1 million coin from a worthless penny. But sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine holding a coin that looks ordinary, that jingles in your pocket every day, yet hides a fortune that could change your life forever. This isn't just any penny. This is the 1970 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so rare, collectors around the world are desperate to find it, and one tiny detail is the difference between ordinary change and $1 million miracle. Back in 1970, the United States Mint was producing pennies by the millions. But a few coins slipped through with a subtle, almost invisible error: the absence of a mint mark. Normally, coins from Philadelphia carried no mint mark, but certain pieces were struck differently, creating anomalies that only the sharpest eyes could detect. Most people would never notice. Most people would toss them into their jars of pocket change. But for those who did, it became a once-in-a-lifetime treasure hunt. Collectors were shocked when the first 1970 no-mint mark pennies began appearing at auctions. Dealers scrambled to verify their authenticity. Some coins sold for thousands overnight. Others quietly disappeared into private collections, locked away, their owners blissfully unaware of the fortune in their hands. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle after his granddaughter insisted he check the coins in an old tin. The penny he casually held? Worth over $1 million today. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. An auction in New York listed a 1970 no-mint mark penny, in nearly flawless condition, and the room went silent as the bidding skyrocketed. The starting price was $50,000. Within minutes, it jumped to $250,000. Collectors from around the country were on the phone, desperate to get their hands on it. By the time the hammer fell, it sold for over $1.2 million. Imagine holding something so small yet so powerful that its value eclipses luxury cars, exotic vacations, and entire life savings. What makes this penny so special isn't just the year or the missing mint mark. It's the story hidden in its design. Look closely at Lincoln's profile, the way the lines curve, the subtle depth of the letters, the tiny differences in spacing that make this coin unmistakable to trained eyes. Many coins have wear or scratches, but this penny must have the exact crisp details that only a perfectly preserved era coin carries. Miss it, and it's just another penny. Spot it, and you could hold a piece of history and wealth in your palm. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, and every auction reinforces the legend. One private sale in California quietly transferred a 1970 no-mint mark penny for $900,000. The seller didn't realize the coin's true value until a neighbor mentioned a recent auction. This is what makes coin collecting so unpredictable. Fortunes can appear in the most ordinary places, hidden among loose change, forgotten drawers, and dusty jars. Most people still miss it. They see pennies every day, yet never imagine that the coin in their pocket could be worth more than their car, more than a house in some cities, more than most of their life savings. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The absence of the mint mark may seem insignificant, but it's the key that unlocks the door to unimaginable value. One collector discovered his penny in a pile of coins he inherited from his grandfather. He didn't believe it at first. He compared it to pictures online, checked the subtle details, and called a dealer who nearly fainted when he verified it. That single penny, unnoticed for decades, became the centerpiece of a collection that will be remembered in coin history. Stories like this aren't just rare, they're legendary. First, check the date, 1970. Then, look for the absence of a mint mark beneath the date. Examine Lincoln's profile carefully. Are the letters sharp and crisp? Are the edges clean and intact? Most fake or misidentified coins show uneven wear or inconsistent lines. Only coins struck perfectly in 1970 without the mint mark, in high-grade condition, hold this extraordinary value. Even a minor scratch or a subtle discoloration can drop $1 million coin into the thousands. Accuracy matters more than anything. Collectors also look for provenance. Any hint that the coin came from a reputable source or was verified by a grading company. This is not a casual hobby anymore, it's high-stakes treasure hunting. Auctions now attract billionaires and seasoned collectors alike. Every discovery makes headlines. Every verified coin becomes a story people tell for generations, and the thrill doesn't end with the first find. Once you spot a 1970 no-mint mark penny, you begin seeing the hidden world of coin collecting differently. Every jar of change, every forgotten drawer, every dusty collection might hide another treasure. The chase itself becomes addictive, compelling, almost mystical. Imagine the moment of realization, a single penny transforming your life, not just financially, but emotionally. The awe, the disbelief, the sudden possibility that ordinary moments can harbor extraordinary rewards. This is why the 1970 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just a coin. It's a symbol of discovery, patience, and luck. It's proof that even in our daily routines, the universe hides miracles. One moment, it's just a coin jingling in your pocket. The next, it's a life-changing treasure worth over $1 million. And now, it could be sitting in your drawer. That exact penny, overlooked, unassuming, waiting for someone to recognize its secret. Take the time to examine your coins carefully. Compare, scrutinize, and verify. The tiniest details matter. Lincoln's profile, the date, the missing mint mark, these are the clues that lead to unimaginable value. The stories are real. Collectors have turned pennies into fortunes. Dealers have chased coins across the country, and auctions have ended with millions of dollars changing hands. One man's pocket change became a financial miracle. One coin's hidden secret captivated the coin world. And today, that opportunity could be yours. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.